Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to A Celtic World, the Tactical Review, the podcast that takes a deep dive into Celtic matches. My name is Anthony Maguire. As you can see, I'm all alone tonight. Paul Massey, unfortunately, having some IT issues at home, no internet where he is. Given the tumultuous nature of the fixture last night, the fantastic result, Celtic getting through in penalties, 4-2 against Rangers at Ibrox. It would be remiss of me and us not to present online, at least in an abridged format. So I'm really relying on your comments tonight to sort of help guide the conversation as I take us through what was a bit of a slugfest for the ages last night. So, like I said, if you want to get involved in the comments section, I'll be bringing your comments up, and we'll have a bit of a chat. So, apologies that my head is a little bit bigger than normal, but it's a good opportunity to have another discussion about it. And I was on Axon last night. So I've had 24 hours to reflect on what I saw last night, Perth time. Obviously mid-afternoon if you were in Scotland. And like I said, get involved in the comments like Lubo McNamura. That's quite the name you've got there, quite the hashtag. Anthony, good to catch you live. Terrible game, fantastic ending. Yes. It was, and I think the fear really kicked in with the team lineup, which I'm going to bring up now because really, obviously, asked for a lot of discussion. But obviously, the noticeable absences of Kieran Tierney and Callum McGregor. Probably only the second time our captain has missed in the last 30 Glasgow derbies, so quite a to not see him start was obviously a bit of a confidence blow for Celtic fans, I'm sure, all around the world, because it's just a fixture that you expect Callum McGregor to put in a performance. And unfortunately, apparently picked up a knock against Aberdeen during the week, so he was unavailable. Kieran Tierney was obviously always fighting back from that pretty nasty stomp from Oloyenyi in the Aberdeen match. So he also missed out, thankfully just bruising and a bit of soreness. So hopefully both players available for the Motherwell fixture in a week's time to take us back into league to league form. But obviously all eyes last night on this quarterfinal clash. I sort of said on Axon before the game that it'd be really nice to send Martinoneill off with a Scottish Cup trip to Hampden at the end of the season. Obviously have to beat Rangers, and now obviously have to beat St Mirren, our bogey team, as it were, at Hampden in the semi-final. But I don't think you can underestimate how big a result this was, given my old man's come straight in here and said after 4 away games in the trot, you've got to be happy with that. Absolutely. And I think Martin was very quick to point out that the players were a bit dead on their feet. I mean, 4 games all away from home is one thing, but then you've also got to factor in it was an away game in Germany where we won for the first time in Germany ever as Celtic. You then had a trip to Rangers. They played us off the park for 50 minutes, but we found a way back into the game. And Rio Atati, was the one that sort of picked up the headlines that day. Got us back to 2 each on another day. Quite easily could have won that 3-2. Luke McCowan, I'm sure, still having nightmares of that chance that he had. We then had to go up to Pittodrie, which is never an easy game. Pitch was very, very loose. I mean, still admittedly better than what it was a month ago when we were meant to play that fixture. We copped some knocks up there, and we battled hard. And again, our talismanic and enigmatic Swede pops up to get a winner, 2-1 up in Aberdeen. We then have 3 days to come back down to Glasgow again and go back to Rangers again and somehow get a result. And we've done it. And to have, what, 3 victories, obviously it was a draw after full time, but, to get the result in the end of cup fixture, so we'll take that as a win. 3 wins and 1 draw, those 4, difficult fixtures on the back of the defeat to Hibs at home. It's quite an achievement, and that's without having Austin Trusty available, obviously, up until last night, and that probably leads into the conversation around the back 4. I'm going to bring in your comments as much as I can, because as you can probably see, for the guys that are live, Paul unfortunately can't be with us tonight. His internet has let him down. A bit like some of the Rangers supporters, a bit of a letdown. But anyway, more on that later. So Ian Roy saying here, it's about time those vile words the chance of publicised the mainstream media. Yeah, I don't hold too much hope of that happening, Ian, particularly with all the both sides argument of the pitch invasion at the end of the game. Again, we'll get to that later in the podcast. 420 somewhere. Good to see you as always, mate. Hail, 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 hail to you. The Huns embarrassing themselves as usual. Yep, I would totally agree with that. And and I think this is a very key point, and this is sort of salient through this whole performance last night. Is you definitely feel that the playing staff, for as much as we lack a bit of quality, I don't think you can argue that they're at least not putting in a shift. And that's been in all the matches. Like they've played to the full 90. Yes, we've drifted in and out of games. Yes, we haven't quite hit the heights. Yes, not always coming off, but the backs to the wall performance at Ibrox last night was something to behold, and in particular that defensive performance. So, so to back to that, some of the discussion points leading into the game last night were obviously who was going to be in goals. There was mood music that Kasper Schmeichel may have been fit and back. For me, Sinisalo, it's his jersey you lose now. That was before his, absolute, mammoth performance last night, but he'd done enough to secure that jersey, and realistically, it's only going to be through illness or injury that I think he gives that up between now and the end of the season, and ultimately that's what you want. You want players taking their opportunity and their chances when it becomes available, and I feel that Sinisalo's done that leading into last night's game. The other big talking point was who was going to be the centre half partnership. Obviously, Austin Trusty had served two matches of his 3-match ban, but he is eligible obviously for the cup game, being a different competition. So he sort of came back in, and that was obviously an inspired decision. Spoiler alert, he was my man of the match. He was absolutely immense. You could see that he was probably a bit fresh from the fact that he's not played as much football as some of the other players. I guess the automatic thought would be it'd be him and Liam Stales, bringing that partnership back together. But Martinoneill went a different way. With Kieran Tierney being unavailable, he gave Stales the captain's armband, and then also shoved him out at left back. And at the time, you're sort of saying that's it's a big decision, because Liam Stales not the greatest going forward, a bit slow in transition. But Martinoneill saw the mood music in terms of we were going to have to put in a colossal defensive display, and shoring it up at the back, and opting for Stales rather than Sinisalo ended up being a masterstroke. And at the time, I know it was getting questioned in the Axon chat pre-game. A lot of people questioning why we didn't go with Sinisalo, but as much as I gave Trusty my man of the match, I thought Stales put in a very, very good performance as well. And that meant Benjamin Arthur kept his spot in the team after a solid performance against Aberdeen. I sort of admitted that he's now obviously under a lot more pressure against Rangers at Ibrox than he would have been up at Pittodrie against Aberdeen, who arguably could be one of the worst teams in the league. But he looked solid, definitely got the physique to manage it. And then Julian Araujo, there was no doubt that he was going to be starting to right back, and he's just got that right mongrel, to coin an Australian phrase, just really seems to aggravate the Rangers support and the Rangers players and the Rangers manager. But does it in such a way that he doesn't get carried up in it in himself, which is really it's going back to the Lustig days, and I saw a post from Lustig sort of almost doing a bit of a baton handover from one right back with a bit of attitude to another, and it's a real shame that we don't have an option to buy. But I really think that Celtic could do worse than try and ask Bournemouth to see what could be done to sort of bring him to Glasgow permanently, because he seems to have settled right into the squad. He seems to get what it's about, and he's an international player, and you need international players in your squad because they're going to improve the quality of what you've got. So that's the back line. Before I move into the midfield, I'll just see if there's any other comments that are relevant at the moment. Otherwise, there's a feis comments about Tavernier's penalty. Yep, keep your powder dry, lads. We'll definitely get there. Big Dom probably makes a valid point here. He's saying that the worry for me is the growing injury list for key players. Yep. There was a bit of reading between the lines from Martinoneill's pre-match comments. I didn't get to see it because I was live doing the other pod of Axon, but some of the guys in one of the group chats were saying that he was almost intimating that he was sort of keeping them fresh for the Motherwell game, and it was rather than risk them and they weren't quite 100%, give them another week to recover. And I like that. I mean, the Scottish Cup, it's a big deal, but the league's where it's at, and Motherwell in a week's time at Celtic Park is going to be a massive fixture, and another game that's going to have a huge bearing on where the league trophy ends up at the end of the season. So I like the fact that they're looking at the big picture as well. That and the fact that this game against Rangers was always going to be a battle. It was always going to be scrappy. It was always going to be, a real slog. And yes, to have Kieran Tierney and Cal McGregor missing, two Scottish players who get that fixture, who understand that fixture, it's not ideal, but it also gives other players an opportunity. And Luke McCowan was the one that was put into Cal McGregor's number 6 role, that sort of defensive midfield pivot, the out ball for the centre halves. But back to that in a second. I'll just see if there's anything else that's relevant before we move on. Obviously, all the Tav comments, pretty much everyone's getting stuck in straight away. I love it. And I'm going to critique the performance by Celtic, but I just really want to stress how delighted I am that we had one shot off target and managed to come away with a victory at Ibrox. I know that we probably won't look back on it with too much fondness in the sense of the performance from a footballing spectacle, but you cannot underestimate the defensive ability to keep a clean sheet after 120 minutes. And I say back 5, but you've also got to factor in Dane Murray, who came into the game at the 60-minute mark, and he has some very incredible moments as well in that sort of final 60 minutes of the match as well. So you almost say it's a back 6 of sorts. What else have we got here? Sinisala got on their heads, definitely for the penalty shootout. There's a few people sort of saying that. McLaughlin P could see in the comments as well, mate. Psyched them out. Yep, I definitely think Sinisala was channeling that Aussie keeper. Was it Redmayne? He was sort of dancing on his line and really sort of being a bit of a nuisance. And I kind of felt that, we almost rested a little bit of ascendancy in that last couple of minutes of the match where we had that chance with James Forrest and it broke out for a throw-in, and we should have had time to take a throw-in because there was, there should have been 1 minute of added time, but Don Robertson blew it up straight on 120 minutes, no extra added time, and I'm just like, oh, that's just a bit of bitterness from Don. A real stop-start performance from him. Really, does not let the game flow at all. Obviously, there was some absolute, walloping decisions throughout the match. I thought the VAR interventions were probably, all correct. But, yeah, his performance as a referee, again, left a lot to be desired. And this is even after he books Diamondi in the second minute of the match. I thought that was quite incredible. I've ever seen a Rangers player booked so early in a match in my entire life. And I thought that's sort of where he set his stall out. And then he doesn't book Mikey Moore at the 25-minute mark when he pulls Niedern's shirt back. And it's like, yeah, it's inconsistent, and that for me just bugs me. It bugged me when I used to play football. We had some shocking referees, but if they were bad for both teams, then you could live with it. But inconsistency just kills it for me, both watching and back in the day when I used to kick a ball around. And I just don't understand how you just can't referee to a certain standard. But unfortunately, that's what we've got to deal with. So. Brown Warrior, just again, that was a reference to Sinisalo, who's quickly becoming a bit of a fan favourite. I think just a bit of a breath of fresh air. Just his mobility. And, he was coming for crosses, and I've got some stills, and we'll run through what I can. Obviously, I've got a bottle of water here. I'm going to have to take a wee breather of my voice at some point. But just really mobile, agile. And for me, that save he made against Aberdeen during the week, that was top class. Schmeichel in his current form, it wasn't making that save. And that for me was the sign that the baton's been passed, and it's Sinisalo now until the end of the season. Mobile off his line, coming for crosses. It just takes pressure off his centre halves. It just gives him a bit more confidence. And then on top of that, he was playing the sweeper-keeper role to absolute aplomb. I'm talking out of turn in terms of the sequential nature of this game, and I haven't even got through the lineup yet. But there was one moment where Arthur just misjudges it. The ball breaks through, and Sinisalo's out like a shot. Another keeper, it's a red card and a free kick because he mistimes it, but he slides out, clears his lines, absolutely perfect. And that, again, just gives your defence a bit of assuredness that if they do make a wee mistake, that the keeper's there to back them up, and just really defending as a unit. And it was really, really good to see. And I kind of feel like it's something that's been lacking in our locker for most of the season. I think under Martinoneill it's been more noticeable, like the defensive performances have been better. But under Wilfred Nancy, they were non-existent, and Brendan Rodgers wasn't keeping clean sheets early in the season either. So I'm hoping that the one thing that we can really take from this match, other than the fact that we're now into another semi-final at Hampden, is the fact that we've kept a clean sheet against them, and we can, it doesn't matter how much pressure we're under, that we can stand up to it. And I really thought that was really, really important. Just have a quick flick through the comments, see if there's anything relevant. A lot of people talking about what happened after the match. We will definitely get there, guys, I promise. I didn't see Casper at the game. Not to say he might not have been in the stands somewhere, but I didn't see him in any of the coverage that I was watching. Anyway, so we'll move on. So McCowan, assuming the McGregor role, and to be fair, I thought he struggled. And I think a lot of that was to do with the way Rangers set up. I said pre-match on the Axon coverage that Rangers play a certain way. I didn't expect that to change. Two up top, basically splitting our centre halves, so it makes it hard for them to get the ball out to the centre midfielder, forces them out wide. They pump the ball long, Butland, the centre halves, they pump it long. The two forwards come together, and then their midfield diamond clump together, 3 or 4 players, and then they win the second ball and then play the ball in our half, high in our half, and put us under pressure. And that's their game plan. And it works against us to a degree because we try and play out and we try and play football, but it doesn't work against some of the lower level teams in the league, and that's reflected in Rangers' form against some of the lower teams in the league. They can't break them down because this huff and puff, rush ball that they like to play doesn't work against deep defensive lines. Now, our challenge was to try and find a way to counter that, and it took a Rio Hatate, performance in the second half in last week's fixture to turn it around. And once we sort of beat their sort of forward press, we were in behind them every time, and we were carving them up. And I guess the one change that Danny Rose sort of made to try and combat that was the fact that he brought De Gea in and left John Souttar out, because he knew we'd probably go with Maeda, who seems to be our centre forward again. The revolving door of Celtic centre forwards. I think we've had 6 this season that we counted, or it was counted on a podcast sometime this week. So it's quite incredible. And at the moment, Johnny Kenny's still our top goal scorer from the centre forward position. So very crazy when you think about that statistic. Anyway, so partner in McCowan, back to the midfield, partner in McCowan was Nidrin and Hatate, and you're really looking for a big performance from McCowan and Hatate. McCowan obviously put in a great performance a week or so ago against Stuttgart. He obviously had his chance against Rangers and fluffed it. He scored the goal in Stuttgart. So you're sort of saying that he was probably the next cab off the rank, deserving of a start. But unfortunately, just really, really tentative in possession, kept giving the ball away. Just couldn't quite find the rhythm and the pace in that first 30 minutes. I did think he sort of grew into the game a bit in that sort of final 15, maybe I'd say 15 minutes of the first half. And that's kind of where we probably had our most fluent passage of the game, probably. Attack, it was good. Neil Lennon was singing his praises in commentary, trying to push the case forward and move the ball forward as much as possible. He was getting stuck in. He was, trying to sort of win the ball back when we were out of possession. And Nidrin was Nidrin. Again, trying to pick the ball up and carry, when we did occasionally get the ball forward, but quite disjointed, him up to the front three, which was Maeda playing centre forward, and then Tinekti on the left and Yang on the right. Just really, really difficult. Just couldn't sort of, the ball at no point really stuck when it went forward. So even if we did go long, which wasn't very often, because for the first 20 minutes we persisted on trying to play out from the back and invited a fair amount of pressure upon ourselves, but not to the point where, we looked like conceding. But it was just asking for a bit of a change, I thought. Maybe try and play a diagonal ball to try and get Maeda or Tinekti or Yang, just to sort of get it into the corner and at least try and drag Celtic up the park a bit. But we probably persevered for that first 20-25 minutes, and then it sort of, I thought Rangers actually took the foot off the gas a little bit. Whether they were wary of last week's performance, where they didn't quite, they sort of ran out of legs in a way, and then they lost their way, taking their centre forward off, and they just didn't quite hit the heights. I don't know whether they were trying to conserve a bit of energy. They didn't play that Chimichi, or whatever his name is, the centre midfielder. He came on at sort of half time, so they kind of kept him in reserve, I almost felt. So yeah, it was just a bit interesting, but that sort of gave us an opportunity to then sort of get a foothold in the game and obviously carve our chance for what we thought was going to be our goal, but obviously not to be. But again, I'll just bring in some comments and have a little glass of water, because I've been talking non-stop for 23 minutes or 24 minutes. So Paul usually does a bit of the heavy lifting in the chat department. So he's having IT issues tonight, guys. So why you're stuck with me alone, but too much of an opportunity not to have a chat about last night's game. So Franny's brought a comment in here about Hatate. He thought he'd done well, but it was like he was playing in there by himself. And I think, last night's midfield was obviously, I think, the first time that those three have probably ever started a game together for Celtic. I think that's pretty safe to say. Obviously, I can't say unequivocally, but I think that would be the case. But it's probably been a bit of an issue, is that when you've got Nidrin playing in your team, he's there for the goals. Aberdeen, perfect example, didn't start him, struggling for goals, comes off the bench, comes up with a moment that gets you the winner. He is really playing like a number 10, so you're almost just playing two in midfield in the truest sense of the word. So you really need those two to be workers, and this is where just Arnie Engels is just the one for me that's just absolutely the the real big injury miss at the moment. It's not to say that Hattati's not done well since he's come back in at the cold, but just to, last night, an Engels Hattati midfield from the start, I think would have made the difference. And then Brown Warrior saying he dies in space. We could have gone long. Yeah, I agree. I didn't think we tried that often enough. And I think Tajida did sort of combat Maeda's pace to a degree. I think if it was John Souttar, we'd have had more joy trying to play that type of ball in and really turning it into a bit of a running race. But yeah, it's not something that we did enough of. The VAR and the Timu laser lines yet we'll probably get. There's probably a still image that Gav's picked out that I'll hopefully get up there at some point. Oh, and then my old man spotted something pre-match. A nice wee handshake and cuddle between the referee and the Butland at the start of the game. You always love to see that. That it doesn't get the conspiracy theorist going, does it, when you see stuff like that? Henrik Molassen saying here, McCowan was lightweight as F. Bars off the ball too easily. Yeah, he didn't really sort of get to the pace of the game, unfortunately. And it was probably almost reminiscent of Oxlade Chamberlain the week before. And then Henrik Molassen said, I'm a flying solo. Yes, I am. Paul's internet has died. NBN issues. If you're in Australia, you'll know what that means. But yeah, he's given me a couple of wee notes to bring in as we talked about the match and stuff like that. So, and then what's Brown Morris saying here? Should have had 2 goals in the last 2 games, but for an offside and a handball. I'm assuming he's talking about Diaz and Maeda. And this sort of sums it up. And I don't want to be too negative because you ultimately you can only go with what you've got. And the transfer windows haven't been good enough. The downgrade in this squad has been there for all to see. But, the quality in the squad is badly exposed. Players are unable to pass the ball to the pitch. Shocking indictment on the recruitment. Disgraceful, really. And it is. And I think Brown Warrior is probably alluding to the fact that Joel Mavuka was on the bench. And it's one thing to be on the bench, but there was another thing that he came on, and I try not to be too disparaging on this podcast and on any podcast that I do, because I know that deep down everyone's just trying their best. But my goodness, I think he quite possibly could be the worst player Celtic has signed, admittedly only on loan. Thankfully, the team doctor who did the medical spotted a heart issue, and we didn't sign him permanently, because that would have been 3.5 to 4 million quid pissed down the drain. But the fact that he's even kept Balakwisha out the side, I thought Balakwisha at least had some nice touches, but this laddie has a touch like a baby elephant. He runs like a baby giraffe. He just looks so ungainly. There was some clearances that he made. I thought he was just, every time he tried to clear the ball, he's kicked it straight to a Rangers player. I don't know who scouted him, and I really just can't understand it. So for me, that was the most, to hit the nail on the head on the whole recruitment piece. He was just the poster child for that last night. And my old man saying here, did he have his boots on the wrong feet? And I thought Chimiti had his boots on the wrong feet last night, because he had some gilt-edged chances to really seal it for Rangers. And he made his pay a week ago, but I thought he was quite profligate in front of goal with the chances. He didn't have massive chances, but the chances he did have, I thought he didn't do too well either. Okay, we're half an hour in and haven't even brought any game stills up, so let's just run through and see what we've got. So I'm just running with what Gav's given me, so apologies for the fact that I'm just going to be sort of running through these. So this was the penalty shout, never a penalty. I know at this point, Rangers Twitter was firing up, going, "Oh, this should have been a penalty kick." Under no circumstances. I know Neil Lennon and Alan Hutton, who we had to endure in commentary, both called this a penalty because they actually thought it hit Austin Trussie's left arm in first viewing. But when they saw the replay and saw it hit his right arm, and his right arm's tucked right into his body. There's absolutely no way any referee or VAR can give that as a penalty kick or a red card. I'm sure it was in the box not, but anyway, a foul. So we're okay there. This was a long ball, flick on, and we were caught flat-footed. So we didn't win the first ball. They were quickest to react. And it was a really, really good block from Austin Trusty, first of many. This was the Arthur mistake. He made a couple in the first half. There was one where he got the ball out from Sinisalo and took a bad touch and it bobbled, and his pass went straight to a Rangers player, ended up being a Rangers corner. Thankfully, we managed to sort of clear our lines there. This time, rather than just clearing his lines again, they managed to sort of pinch the ball and, probably could have done better. But again, it was an Austin Trusty, sticks his leg out and again clears his lines. And he was just absolutely immense. And, I'm straight keep saying it because he was. And Benjamin Arthur was as well. I'm being a bit nitpicky with a couple of errors, but unfortunately, when it's so tight and the margins are so close, sometimes they're the mistakes that cost you. But thankfully last night it wasn't the case. This was our disallowed goal. So as soon as it went in, I watched the first replay, and for me, I was concerned about Liam Scales. I just thought that trailing leg, that is going to be very, very close. I don't know if we got the lines. It was a great flick on, and from Maeda, it'd be the first to react. Great diving header, beats Butland, fantastic. We unfortunately don't have the image of the lines there, but I've seen people sort of say, there's a line that bisects about 3 Rangers players. So how can you draw it from those lines? I mean, the only way we're ever going to know is if there happens to be a Rangers supporter recording that particular period of passage of play on his phone, and you can see it live and see from the actual proper 90-degree angle. I mean, we're trusting the technology. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it wasn't offside. If they're saying it's offside, it's offside. But it's hard to take. And from a Celtic point of view, it was probably the one bit of quality in an attacking sense that we had the whole match, because it was few and far between. Defensively, we were excellent, but going forward, we were dreadful. I mean, call a spade a spade. We were terrible, and this was just, it was a bit of a set piece. Scales flicked one on from an absolutely dreadful Luke McCowan corner against Aberdeen during the week. He's managed to get his big ginger head on this one as well. So I mean, he's got form, and Maeda's in fact the quickest to react, and that's where Maeda's at his best, when he's just that instinctive, player. And I think, to get back to the recruitment piece and picking a centre forward, he's the one that's the most instinctive, because I've understood why we persevered with Chivantra for a while, but the one thing that really lets his game down, there's a few things, but the one that really lets his game down is he's got no instinct inside the box. He's never in the right position when the ball gets played across. Not, admittedly, we don't do it all that often of late, but he just is never in front of the defender. He's always between two defenders and never really, either moving defenders out the way or looking like he's already on the end of something. And Maeda does do that. And yeah, Maeda's Maeda. He'll miss good chances, but he stuck that one away. And unfortunately, it was VAR that sort of denied us. But it was a wee shot in the arm close to half time, and you're thinking, we're not out of this. We're very much in this game. We're solid at the back. We just needed a couple of moments of quality higher up the pitch. And would they come? And I said beforehand, before the game even started, we will get our chances, and we just had to take them. But admittedly, we didn't create many of those. Comments, what we got? I'm just having a quick wee look through as I'm sort of chatting, and what we got here. There's a wee, yeah, I agree. I mean, can be forgiven. because they can be ironed out. And I think you have to remember this is his 7th professional game of football at senior level. So I mean, the guy's I think he's got a very big future in football. Paul stressed it last week on the pod that Brentford use a data analytics model, not dissimilar to what Hearts is using. So they do identify talent. I don't know what we're using, but we're using the absolute antithesis of that at the moment, I would imagine. But the guy's clearly a player. He's got the attributes. He's big, he's strong, looks comfortable on the ball. He's going to make those mistakes at this juncture, and that's the flip side of taking someone at the start of their career as opposed to taking a Shane Duffy type loan signing where someone at nearing the sort of end of their career. Old man here saying that the Japanese lads look like they might be up for the run-in. And well, to say your point there, they're the sort of players who've been over the course in the last 4 seasons. They've done it before. They've been there. They are core members of this squad. Hatate's been out of favour for large parts of the season, but maybe he's coming into a game at the right point. Maybe he gives you that extra option in midfield that we need. Hopefully we get Engels back after the international break. That's when he's touted to make a comeback. He incidentally was at the game yesterday in the Broomloan stand end, along with AJ, Carter Vickers, Callum Osmond. I think Stephen Welsh and Anthony Ralston were there as well. So there was actually a bit of a squad. Stilian Petrov was in there. Joe Hart was in there. It was a who's who of Celtic players past and present. So, it was great. And, just to take a wee break from the football, I thought the support yesterday was absolutely outstanding from a point of view of the singing and the noise that they were making and driving the team on, because for long periods of that game, we were absolutely under the cosh. And I really, really thought, I said it after the match, and I'll say it again, I thought they were absolutely excellent. 7,500 Celtic fans out singing the rest of that lot in their own stadium, singing simply the best, sticking it right up them. I mean, it was great. There's some things I will say at the end of the pod about some of the actions and behaviours which I think are questionable. And that's definitely, obviously more on Rangers than us. But from the actual singing and the supporting element, I thought absolutely outstanding. And again, we're going to get that back into Celtic Park because we're going to need that. Franny saying Harajo, what a player and a character, he gets it. I thought defensively he was absolutely outstanding yesterday. I thought going forward he gave the ball away a fair bit. And it wasn't just him. They all did it. But I just thought he was uncharacteristically a little bit sloppier on the ball, passing out than he had been. But I think a lot of that came back from the Rangers pressure and the Rangers setup. Because the one thing they did do is when the ball did come out wide, they squeezed us right up against the sideline and really made it really, really difficult to play the ball out. And again, you're just looking for that out ball that we just didn't seem to have yesterday. So we'll just quickly keep scanning through these images. So this was one where Tinecti gets his pocket pinched, and I thought he was quite disappointing yesterday. He didn't really live up to the fixture. I mean, you're looking for him to try and get on the ball and create a bit of attacking threat, but unfortunately, he is looking more and more like an impact sub rather than a starter, which is a problem because if you've got Daizen Maeda starting and centre forward, where's your left winger coming from? Because then you're starting to scratch the barrel because Joel Mavuka is obviously not up to it. Balikwisha's non-existent. He's not there. So I'm not sure. Yang's definitely better on the right than he is on the left. James Forrest isn't great on the left. So a little bit of a question mark on it as to who you can deploy in that left wing position from a starting point of view. If you're not going to go with Sebastian Tinecti, because he was a bit of a letdown, he gets his pocket pinched here. Not sure about this image. I'm trying to figure out where this was, but I think Chimetti just sort of fluffs his lines here. this was a great save from Sinisalo. It was offside, but Sinisalo wasn't to know that. It was actually a really, really good save from him. This we're at the second half now. This was a ball that Nygren puts into Maeda. This was probably almost our best chance of the whole second half, but the runs tracked from Romans, their left back, who looks a tidy player for them, and it manages to sort of see it out and actually defends it quite well, I thought. And yeah, as much as Maeda goes over in the box, I don't think there was anything more to that one. I thought Mikey Moore was quite their danger player, which, in a way sort of sums up Rangers as well, because, he's 18 years old, he's on loan, and they've got no option to buy him. They couldn't afford him. So, for me, that's a bit of an indictment on their squad, and they had the full squad to pick from. We've got no AJ, no Carter Vickers, no KT, no Cal McGregor, no Callum Osmond, if you want to even count him, no Engels. I mean, there's almost a starting lineup of players who are currently unavailable for Celtic. No Casper Schmeichel, if you want to be really pedantic. Where they had pretty much the full team to pick from, and they still couldn't manage to beat us. So, I'm sure there's some Rangers fans letting that sort of sink in at the moment. Again, Austin Trusty managed to get his leg in here and does extremely well. Twice double block, and this was probably the one thing that Tedeschi actually did do really well, is he actually clears his lines here. He learned his lesson from a week before, where Rastan sort of jumps in and gets over the top of him a week ago. He manages to clear his lines there. So these were the subs. Tedeschi off, McCowan off, and Arthur came off, and Murray, the Ox, and Chavansra on. Maeda deployed on the left, Chavansra up front, and then Oxlade-Chamberlain replacing McCown in the middle of the park, and Murray coming on for Arthur at the 60-minute mark. Who, like I said, I thought Murray played extremely well when he came on. Obviously, very unlucky to miss out in Aberdeen with a dead leg, apparently, in the pre-match warm-up. So, both players, a bit of a sliding doors moment there, but, getting back into it, which was great. Yangfeld in the lead up. Yeah, there should have been a free kick here. There was also another free kick in the first half, which we don't have the still image for. Yang in the corner should have been a free kick in an advanced position for Celtic, but Don Robertson missed that one as well. Surprise, surprise. Trusty with another block. I think you could sort of just record my voice saying that over and over again, because he did it that many times. And this was one where we lost it, and they managed to get in behind us, but Jasama's shot was blocked here. Nygren does well with this one. And then again, Murray with an excellent block here. This was probably one of his. He had this one and the one that he blocks on the goal line and stands beside Sinisalo, which I think we might see in the extra time highlights. This is it here. This is the one I was thinking of. So Sinisalo, and then you've got Murray next to him. Really, really solid defending, and we managed to keep it out. And this is just absolutely astounding. This is their disallowed goal. So you've got Rangers fans wasting their players at their end, thinking this has gone in. You've got their player, I think it's Fernandez. Is it Fernandez? He's celebrating as if he scored here. And he must have known he handballed it not once, but twice. And then he's celebrating as if he scored a goal. And it's like, how on earth do you think that that's not going to get picked up? I mean, every Celtic player's screaming for a handball. You knew VAR was going to review it. What are you thinking? Why are you celebrating like an absolute idiot? Like, this isn't like, pre-VAR. Like, they're going to pick this up. It's just absolutely, absolutely insane. But anyway, it is what it is. Like, they obviously celebrate thinking that they've won the match when, they haven't. And I mean, it's just embarrassing. Tavernier, I really thought that when he came on, he did deliver some absolutely wicked crosses in and really puts under a bit of extra pressure again. I thought Chimity, this was probably one of his best chances of the match, and he's just sloughed this one wide. And then this was the sort of the break right at the end. Forrest. Unfortunately, we don't get the throw in after that, and that's all she wrote. So as you can see there, 24 shots on target to 1. Apparently giving us a shot on target, which I'm not sure about. But anyway, 12 corners to 4. Possession, where are we? 59 to 40. But I'd say that Rangers probably had the more dangerous possession. But yeah, it was just quite remarkable. I'm going to bring up, obviously, Gav's got some images here of the penalties as well, so we might as well have a wee look see and see what he's put up here. Oh, he's does have some. Bear with me a second. I just need to fix this. So yeah, part of it also makes you think, as much as it was the dead balls in the lead up to the penalty shootout, it was also the fact of getting Tavernier on the park for the penalty shootout. And I know a few guys here in the comments early doors were getting stuck straight in. My old man here, Tav bottled it, changes his mind, and he was in two minds. He ends up skying it off the bar, and then Ian Roy, Big Dom saying that Tav won the crossbar challenge. And then ARDN6KH, Tav Penn telling himself, I'm not a serial loser. I think the word you're looking for is, I'm not disappointed, when in fact, he probably was very disappointed with that one. I could go through all the images, but Tavernier, he misses. Then it's over to the Ox. Yeah, there you go. That's that look that is ingrained in the minds of Celtic supporters worldwide. The I'm disappointed face. Sinisalo does really well here, grabs the ball straight away, gives it straight to the Ox, gets Butland out of the equation. The Ox just waits for Butland to dive. Straight down the middle, cool as you like, 1-0 Celtic. Sinisalo nearly gets a hand to this one, so that's Barami. He scores, so 1 each. Austin Trusty caps off a man of the match performance. Absolutely sends Butland the wrong way. As cool as you like. Solid penalty. Left footers hate them taking penalties, but he made that look dead easy. 2-1 Celtic. Nadiri again. Sinisalo guesses the right way, gets a hand to it, just can't keep it out. Just enough position. That makes it 2 each. Rio Hatate with probably the best penalty he's ever hit in a Celtic jersey. Cool as you like, sends the keeper the wrong way again. 3-2 Celtic, and then this brings Desama to the penalty spot. That's a pretty sad looking Paul Massey doppelganger there, massively sends it into orbit, Roberto Baggio style. So that makes it 3-2 to Celtic with a penalty to go. And Big Tam, Chavanchara has the opportunity to seal the deal, make it 4-2. And he does just that. And then the rest, as they say, is history. And I think it's important here that, they did get every decision. Every wee 50-50, wee niggly ones. The Rangers players got it. Celtic players didn't. They won the toss for their end for the penalty shootout. The game was played at their home venue. Our two best players, current players who are available, out injured. They really couldn't have got any more of the rub of the green if they tried. They also won the coin toss to take the first penalty. It was all their own way. We'd stuffed up our most recent penalty shootout as well. So yeah, it was all in their favour. It was all there for them to win it. But they didn't. And, again, a lot of that's down to Martinoneill. A lot of it's down to the players playing for him and just the belief that they can do it. And yeah, I think Big Dom says here, quality wasn't there. I love how we touch on Shivanshra. I just thought that he just at no point held the ball up, and it was just crying out for him just to get a flick on, or just to try and get it under at least once or twice, just to take some of the pressure off the Celtic team. That backline who'd powered on and tried so hard for 90 minutes, but he just didn't do it, and that was disappointing. I mean, yeah, he scores a penalty at the end, and that took a big set of nuts to do that, and fantastic, great for him. But he's on the park for a long chunk of that game to try and drag Celtic up the park, and at no point did he do that. And I think we're going to have to go back to the drawing board and how we deploy him, because he's not a target man when you're playing up against decent defenders, and we really just we struggled. I'll just take that one off, and then I'm just going to have a wee look and get us back up the current comments, see where everyone's at. Shawnee Boy saying, trusty making us Americans proud for once. Yeah, no, definitely nothing wrong with that American's performance. That's certainly for sure. Everything else that's going on in the world. And, they should have been down to 10 players. Yeah, like I said, refereeing wise, the usual. Dijon Sterling, second yellow card any day of the week. He was already booked, and he took out Maeda. It should have been a second yellow card. He did it twice in the space of about 5-10 minutes, but no, allowed to play on. So yeah, we win it. We're celebrating as a team. Obviously, excitement in the Broomloan stand boils over. A few Celtic supporters, I'd say 50, if that, to make it onto the exterior of the grounds behind the goals in the goal mouth. Just wanting to take selfies with the players. Now, I don't think supporters should be on the pitch. I know, sometimes it happens. It happens at other games. It happened at the Dunfermline game in the same round of fixtures. No one's really talking about that. Rangers supporters were on the park already when they thought they'd scored that goal. That's not really rating much of a mention at the moment. But the Celtic supporters that were on the park were there for, I guess, the right reasons. They were there to savor a moment, shake a player's hand, get a cuddle, take a selfie. Now, here's the thing. If you're stewarding the game properly and you've got the right amount of security and police and everything in place, should supporters of either persuasion, should they be able to get on the park? Probably not. I've been to plenty of sporting events in Australia where there's enough security to deter or stop people from making it onto the park. So, surely Rangers management have to be called into question for, how they've managed that. So, you've got that situation. It's all at that point being pretty, jovial, and everyone's just, it's a feel good factor. We've just backs to the wall for 120 minutes. We've won a penalty shootout. We've knocked out our rivals. We're on a trip to Hampden. They're on a trip home. And then you get all these buds at the other end in blue gimp masks running onto the ground, looking to start trouble. They're not there to shake Rangers players' hands. They're not there to, wish them well. They're there to start aggro, start a fight, be aggressive, hooligan behavior. And this is where I really have a massive, massive issue with the whole coverage of Premier Sports, the BBC, Tom English, David Tanner, Talk Sports, trying to make this as an us and them argument, because in this instance, it's not. Should those Celtic fans be on the park? No. Were they at any point a danger to players or staff of either team? No, they weren't. So hundreds and hundreds of Rangers supporters finally make their way onto the park to allegedly defend Ibrox from Celtic supporters, which is a total nonsense. And they're charging up in a violent manner, looking to start a fight. We have our fitness coach, I believe, assaulted by presumably a Rangers supporter. He had blue and white on. He was subsequently arrested and dragged down the tunnel. Disgraceful. Again, Rangers management, they're responsible for the safety and security of everyone inside the ground. That's supporters, that's players of both teams, support staff of both teams. And in pretty much every trip to Ibrox, we've had our keeper have a bottle lobbed at him, Joe Hart, last season, the season before. We've had one of our physios get coined in the back of the head. Again, nothing was made of that. And then here we are getting one of our players assaulted by a fan on the park after a game. It's not good enough. And then, Celtic fans leave the park as they're asked to do, which they did, back in the stand. And then we have Rangers fans lobbing flares and other missiles. I saw them launch a corner flag into the crowd. Now, what if that hits someone? What if that takes out an eye, burns somebody? It's disgraceful. But Scottish media will have you believe that both sides are to blame for this incident, but the intent of one set of fans was completely different to another. And then I've also seen footage of a Celtic supporter outside the ground getting kicked and stamped as he was making his way to his supporters' bus. How was that allowed to happen? So the whole policing security around this fixture is substandard and not good enough. And that's where the penalty on Rangers should fall on. Yes, the fans have acted, like you'd probably think how they'd act, but it's the security around that whole ground. So yeah, for me, it's just not good enough. Now, separate to that issue, and this is where I'll call out our fans, is that there seems to be vandalism of the Broomloan stand. I don't agree with that. I don't think, as Celtic supporters, we should be doing that. I know Rangers fans have trashed toilets and things when they've come to Celtic Park in the past. I don't think two wrongs make a right there. And then I've also seen some footage of some Celtic fans jumping the turnstiles and getting into the game without a ticket. I don't agree with that either. I think that's stupid behaviour, and that isn't how we should behave as fans. But they're separate issues. And Rangers fans at that point in time, when they charged onto the park to start a fight and a riot, didn't know that those other incidents had happened. So this whole whataboutery after the fact is a total nonsense, and they're separate issues. But again, it comes back to stewarding and the security around the park. And this is the thing. And Timothy Baird's hitting the nail on the head here. He says they're not interested in making it a safe environment. And ultimately, that is that there's a duty of care that has been totally mismanaged. And that's the biggest issue for me in this whole thing. Can you imagine what had happened if someone had attacked Martinoneill and then a Rangers player did try and kick Julian Araujo? There's footage of that. I mean, admittedly, a pretty lame attempt, but he tried. Who knows where it could have went? It could have been really, really quite, it could have been a lot worse in a lot of ways. It's not great, but it could have been a lot worse than what it was. So, I don't want to end on a serious note, because the one thing that really, really pissed me off with the coverage post-match last night from all the interviewers were, pinning Martinoneill and the players who were getting interviewed. Or what did you think of the incidents after the game? It's like Celtic players and the management have just won a game of football after 120 minutes and a penalty shootout. And the first question is, they all they're interested in is, or what do you think of Celtic supporters running onto the ground? It's like it's disrespectful to the players and the management. They've just put their all in for a game of football, and all they're interested in is trying to create this narrative that both sets of fans were completely out of order. One set of fans, were clearly there for a totally different reason from the other, and it doesn't take much to realize, typical Scottish media. Yeah, but you've got to call it out, Bobby. You've got to call it out. And this is where fan media has the ability to call it out, because it's not good enough. It's unacceptable. But for me, the biggest issue of this is the stewarding and the security arrangements, because if it's managed properly, these sorts of things shouldn't have happened in the first place, but they have. And thankfully, apart from the coach, oh, and we've got a hun in the comments. Oh, that's great. So let's just get rid of him. I can't believe there's even one in the comments, to be honest. I didn't think they'd be showing their head today because they're an absolute embarrassment to themselves. And the fact that they got strolled over 120 minutes. We're through a Hampden final or semi-final, and they're going home with nothing, and probably potentially will win nothing this season. So enjoy that. I think I'll get off my soapbox now. I think I've said just about everything I want to say. I'm ready to come out with a man of the match, so I'm just ready to do a quick wee. They have no shame, Shawnee boy. Absolutely, absolutely agree. And they're also not too bright. In fairness, yes, I'd also agree with that. Surmising as well. So yeah, I'm going to do a quick sponsors video and come back with the man of the match, and then we'll wrap it up. But I've managed to do an hour by myself, which I didn't think I'd do. I think I'd be lucky to get to 30 minutes. I've done an hour, so I'm pretty pleased with myself. But I'll be back in a sec, and we'll just wrap up. So best bear with me just for a second.
Every life is full of stories, and we all know someone whose story should be preserved. That's what an audio memoir is, a record of you or your loved one's life stories, family anecdotes, and poignant memories. We will talk online and then edit the recordings into episodes, accompanied by family photos and contemporaneous images of the past, creating an enduring audio-visual experience. We all know someone who deserves an audio memoir.
All right, thank you for that. Just a chance to have a glass of water and just rehydrate after that. Thank you for the 20 or so people who've stayed with me all the way through. Our numbers dropped to about 50, but they do drop off a bit when AXOM comes on, which I totally understand. So I'm just bringing up Paul's comments because he was just sort of saying that Sinisalo was originally his man of the match. He said he liked the fact that he takes back everything he said about him not being good enough. He thought he was excellent, took crosses, mastered the defence, unlucky not to save either of the penalties. And he loved the shithousery, putting them off their penalties. A lot of defensive praise for the whole back six. And he changes his mind in his comments and says that Trusty should actually be his man in the match. And he also had a lot of praise for Dane Murray. So I really nailed my colours to the mast at the start of the broadcast and said that Austin Trusty was my man of the match. So I think that is a fairly unanimous decision. But if you think of something else in the comments, you've got a couple of minutes to let me know who you think your man of the match was. And then my old man saying here he thought Sinisalo was his man of the match. I think between Sinisalo and Trusty, I think you're going to be hard pushed to. I thought Liam Stales was good, but I thought Trusty and Sinisalo were definitely the two. One thing that I didn't mention before that I should say is that I think part of the reason why Austin Trusty also had a really exceptional game was the fact that he was playing on the left side of a centre-back pairing rather than playing on the right. And I think, it just shows that in an ideal world, it should be Trusty or Stales and not both. But, needs must. And yeah, I'm not going to go over the recruitment thing. We'll save that for another week because, I sort of, I could go on for a whole nother hour on that, and I'm losing my voice, so I don't really want to. Peg leg Lawler, I was saying Trusty with a Sinisalo close second. Yeah, that's the way I see it and how I feel about it. But I think, like you say, you could make a claim either way. I finally got to watch Oppenheimer. So for anybody who was tuning into the AXOM coverage during the week for the Aberdeen game, you would know that I was in Auckland, New Zealand, for a wee work break, just a bit of a recharge the batteries, a few days away. Beautiful, beautiful part of the world. Been there once before, and really, really nice. So 8-hour flight back, direct from Auckland back to Perth. So obviously lends itself to a long movie. So I went through the Qantas multimedia section, and I was looking for a long film, and I finally found one I hadn't watched yet, and that was Oppenheimer. And I really I watched the first hour, and then I got sleepy and had a nap and woke up and watched the last 2 hours of it. But Cillian Murphy, absolutely excellent. I thought Robert Downey Jr. just played that slimy. Say he was going for a Senate position, I think, but he was just so greasy and despicable. But he played it so well, and you understand why he got his Oscar. But just the music, just everything about it, thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, really recommend if you haven't seen it. And it was I felt like it was a quick 3 hours as well, which is usually a sign of a really good film. And I guess a little bit, what's the word? A wee bit, what is the word I'm looking for? A wee bit, me sort of seeing ahead, clairvoyant, I guess, a nuclear meltdown or a nuclear explosion, and that happened to be one at Ibrox Stadium. And my other wee one-liner that I had was that Austin Trusty probably thought he was in Girona rather than Govan the way he played, given that's usually a European performance from Austin Trusty. But that was my other wee one-liner that I just, it slipped my mind, but I thought it was too good not to mention. Bobby, mad to think Trusty was man of the match, but he was. I don't think it's that mad to think about it. I mean, mad in the sense that we're probably questioning whether he should get straight back at the starting lineup, but it just seemed like the right decision, and it was. So can't fault that at all. We'll be back next week covering the Motherwell game. Paul and I, hopefully Paul gets his internet sorted this week. As much as it's been great doing this by myself, it is obviously great having a partner in crime, as it were. And I'm sure Paul's climbing the walls wishing he could have been on, but you know, it is what it is. So thank you to everyone in the comment section. It's been nice and lively. Appreciate everyone giving me a hand, helping me out. And we're really building a really good community on here, and I really appreciate it. And as per always, all that's left to say is